Welcome to Let the Quran Speak. I'm Aisha, your host. The recent discovery of a Quran parchment at the University of Birmingham made waves across international media. The parchment dates back to at least the time of the third Caliph of Islam and is almost identical to the Quran in circulation today. Many Muslims are celebrating this discovery as confirmation of what they already believed, that the Quran we have today is exactly the same as the original. Does the discovery support that view? What can we learn from this newly discovered parchment? Joining me to discuss this is Dr. Shabir Ali. Welcome to the show, Dr. Shabir.
Pleasure to be on, as usual.
So there's a lot of hype going around right now about this Quran manuscript that's been found in Birmingham, and there are reports that are saying it's dating as far back as to the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Is this really true?
Well, so the carbon dating would suggest that, according to the carbon dating results, with a 95% accuracy, this goes back to the period of time between 568 to 645 of our Common Era. Now, carbon dating, by its very nature, gives imprecise results. So it's a statistical result. It says that with a 95% accuracy, this is the range of values anywhere within this period. Now, the last date that is mentioned, the later end of that range, is 645. This is 1 year after Uthman's caliphate began. And the significance of this dating is in the fact that it overlaps with that early period, the period at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the early caliphs, and now into the caliphate of Uthman radiallahu an.
So how true is it that they're exactly the same? Because the reason I'm asking this is because I remember growing up, we used to pay broken telephone, and by the time it got to me, the message would be completely different, and a lot of articles are saying it's almost exactly the same.
Yes, and this is why it is of such great significance. First of all, it's exciting for Muslims, and second, it's of great interest to academics, because rather than the results of a broken telephone, we are seeing here an accurate transmission of the text, in that what has been discovered there in Birmingham is a manuscript, only 4 pages to be sure, but nonetheless pages that correspond to the Quran as we're reading it now, as far as the consonantal text is concerned. I have to explain that, what is meant, what is the difference here. But the significant difference that has been found is that whereas in our present copies, some of the alifs would be written in to make the word more easily pronounceable.
And alif is a letter in the Quran?
Alif is the first letter of the Arabic alphabet, and this is often used to indicate a long vowel. So if we look at the Arabic word as-samawat, for example, which means the heavens, now you hear the stretching of the a vowel, samawat. Now in this early manuscripts, the stretched a vowel is not written in. It was expected that the early readers of the Quran would know, from having learned from their teachers, where the vowel is long, where it is short. Almost like in English we may say bat and ball, but bat has a short a, ball a long a. And we know the difference just because we know the language, not because there's any marker that indicates that this one is short and that one is long. So in the early writings of the Quran, we often find that the long a vowel is not marked. But in our present copies, they are marked to make it easy for people, Arabs and non-Arabs alike, those who know the language, those who do not, to be able to pronounce it with greater accuracy and correctness. So one might say this is not really a significant difference at all. And the fact that the rest of the text, the consonantal ductus, remains or is the same as what we're reading now, this is remarkable from the academic perspective.
And so then that means that the overall message over time has remained the same, but the changing in the letters just leads to the different types of readings that we now know of the Quran, right?
Yes, and this necessitates my explanation of the difference when I say the consonantal ductus. Now, I said that the A vowels, the long A vowels, were not necessarily marked. Some were marked, some were not. But more than this, the early writing of the Arabic text of the Quran did not include markers that will differentiate between some look-alike letters. So you might find, for example, that one simple shape is representative of 2 or 3 letters of the Arabic alphabet. What differentiates one letter from the other, are some dots that are placed, either 1, 2, or 3 dots, either above or below that special marker. In this text that has been discovered at Birmingham, only some of the letters have been differentiated in this way, and it seems that these have been differentiated purposefully by the scribes who wanted to mark off and differentiate those places in the text where a later reader might easily trip up and recite the wrong letter if they did not see these differentiating markers. So some markers are there, but not all of them.
So how does this factor in historically? Because the Quran was an oral tradition which was passed down. So at what point was it actually documented in writing?
Now, in the Islamic tradition, it is mentioned that during the time of the Caliph Uthman, copies were made and sent to major parts of the Muslim Empire, together with the edict that all competing copies should be burnt. The reason for that, from a traditional perspective, would be that whereas now we have an official copy being sent out under the aegis of the ruling caliph, done by a committee of people who had listened to the Quran directly from the Prophet, peace be upon him, or are otherwise skilled in the Arabic language, so they know how to write correctly, they know how to spell the words exactly. So when it is done by a committee under a supervised structure and with the input of many of the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, it's done in a very public way with an open call for anyone who has any information about the Quran to come forward with it. Now, that obviously would be more reliable than any copy that has been made by any individual, no matter how good or how pious that individual may be. The collective work is obviously going to trump that. So rather than have copies in circulation which may actually contain errors, because if it's written by one person, that person may have actually made an error in copying. We know this. It's not only broken telephone by word of mouth, but even if you're copying a text that is there before you, you can make mistakes in copying it, because the eyes grow tired, the hand grows weary, mind wanders, and sometimes people write a line twice. Sometimes they miss a line, and so on. So to avoid the possibility of erroneous copies being in circulation, the caliph issued the edict that other copies should be burnt, and only copies now made from this new, the supervised production should be in circulation.
And we also know in the Muslim community, there's also a tradition of memorizing the Holy Quran as well, right?
Yes, this tradition of memorizing the Quran survives to this day, and we can find thousands of memorizers in a small city such as the city of Toronto. And they often demonstrate their skill, not for the purpose of demonstration, but for the purpose of worship during the month of Ramadan, when in many of the major mosques they can be heard reciting the entire Quran from memory, a portion per night, until during the month of Ramadan, the entire Quran is recited from memory.
This is a very fascinating discussion. Thank you, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome.